We will conclude the Kriyas today, actually with 2 Kriya exercises. The first one of which is described in Hatha Yoga Pradipika chapter 2, Sutra 35. Then Kapalabhati is described. Perform Rechaka and Puraka rapidly like the bellows of a blacksmith. This is called Kapalabhati and destroys phlegmatic diseases. Kapalabhati is generally done not as a Kriya exercise, but as a pranayama exercise, breathing exercise. Like that. But although breathing exercise is always good for one's health, we have something else here. We are working towards the practice of pranayama, and here you have the start of that without structure. You perform Rechaka. Pranayama is described as Rechaka, Puraka, and Kumbhaka. So you have, actually it starts with Puraka, Kumbhaka, Rechaka, Kumbhaka. Inflow, retention, outflow, retention. Next week we are going to work using that structure and also with count. Then I will also explain the difference between breath control and energy control. There is a considerable difference there, but also a huge inconsistency that becomes apparent when I explain how it works, how it really works. It destroys phlegmatic diseases. First of all, in the interpretation by Ajita below the bold characters, the translator wrote, by repeatedly letting Shiva out via Chandra Bindu and in through Surya Bindu, Shiva comes in through Chandra Bindu, so they mixed up the Bindus. So you have to correct that. It should say, by repeatedly letting Shiva out via Surya Bindu. Surya Bindu. Here you also see, it doesn't say left nostril or right nostril. It directly mentions the cosmic entrance, Surya Bindu and Chandra Bindu, which is not your left and right nostril. Chandra Bindu is just above the head, while Surya Bindu is in the center of Muladhara Chakra, the sun gate and the moon gate. So letting Shiva out through Surya Bindu, the text says Chandra Bindu. You have to correct that to avoid confusion in the future. Then you let it in through Chandra Bindu, not Surya. So this is what we do. Forget about the previous 5 Kriyas. We are now coming to a conclusion. You're not concerned anymore what happens in between. You're only concerned what happens in Surya Bindu and in Chandra Bindu. According to the text, we let energy out And then energy in. This energy is Shiva, we know, because it's the energy that goes from the top down to the bottom. What happens in between is just a natural consequence. If you start focusing on that, it will just distract you from where your focus should be. To make this easy, you learned the previous kriyas. Expel water, swallow the piece of cloth. Expel water, swallow the piece of cloth. You're told to do this repetitively. Why? It's finger practice to get used to the idea. We've gone through the kriyas. Now you know a little bit how to use the power of the mind to direct energy. That's what we're going to do. And from next week we will do it with a structure. That's not all, because according to the text there are 6 acts, as they call it. But strange enough, Sutra 38 presents us with the 7th. Don't know if it is correct to call it a kriya, but it's very definitely in line with this. Pay attention. 38 Sutra. Then Gajakarani is described. Draw up the apana to the throat and vomit the substances that are in the stomach. This act, the gradual practice of which brings all the nadis under control, is called Gajakarani by those who know Hatha Yoga. So this is the notorious deliberate vomiting exercise. And it is instructing us, it is using the word apana prana. Remember what apana prana is? It's not the content from your stomach. It's the energy, the active energy of Muladhara Chakra. Sham. Energy in, and then vomit. Remember we talked about this area being a ball of vital energy. Then you vomit the substances from the stomach, which is symbolical language. You vomit. Not literally through your mouth, but through the cosmic mouth. Shakti in, Shakti out. Shakti in through Surya Bindu, Shakti out through Chandra Bindu. With this, those last 2, Kapalabhati and Gajakarani, you have covered the 4 acts in pranayama. So the previous 5 kriya exercises prepared you for this, and this is the final practice before we give pranayama a structure with retention and a fixed count. Next week. Shiva out, Shiva in. Not first Shiva in, the text deliberately says you start with exit, with expulsion. Shiva out, Shiva in, repetitively. When you're not interested in that action anymore, you switch to Gajakarani. And you focus on sucking up water through the anus, Vashti, and pulling out the piece of cloth. The first 2 kriya exercises cover this also. Swallowing piece of cloth, Shiva in, and then pulling it out, Shakti out. And sucking up water through the anus, Shakti in, expelling the water, Shakti, Shiva out. Okay? This is just for you to play with. Based on what we have done so far, this is easy, this is simple. And next week the transition towards real pranayama will be a piece of cake. You're familiar with the concept now, and all we have to do is bring some structure in it. That's it. Questions about this? Shiva out, Shiva in, repetitively. When you're done, Shakti in, Shakti out. Shakti in, Shakti out. Shiva out, Shiva in, Shakti out.
When we do this, we're not thinking of like a straight line of, you have to think of like from the midsection out, right?
Though the focus should be in the Bindu, Surya Bindu and Chandra Bindu, but the concept of energy control might still be difficult to grasp. If you find it difficult to grasp, you grab back to Dauti and Vashti. You use childlike fantasy, imagination, swallowing a piece of cloth and pulling it out and sucking up water and expelling it. But if you are able to grasp the concept of energy beyond the visualization of the piece of cloth and the water, you of course are more efficient if you can focus on that only. Yeah? The piece of cloth and the water are helpful tools to stimulate your fantasy, your imagination. But if you've repeated this, and we have done this for the past couple of weekends, it becomes kind of intuitive. Not based on visualization, but based on intuition, feeling. When you reach that point, you can do away with the visualization, with the fantasy. Because in the end, it is a matter of feeling. Okay? Let's just give it a try. Child can do it. It's so simple that the doubting Thomas thinks that is all nonsense, while in fact it's rather powerful.